So he's going to, while I'm talking to, after you finish, while I'm talking to Max, Yelena, they might give you a signal, look at you, and to go up to with the technical guy, put your laptop in. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
We'll keep talking.
Okay, sure.
When you're ready,
I'll give you a thumbs up.
and you'll stand up there.
Yeah.
And give the thumbs up.
Okay, cool.
So it'll happen. We'll keep talking in between while you get set up.
Okay, sure.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be beginning shortly. We're just queuing up a live broadcast right now, so that'll just take a couple of minutes. So we will begin the presentation in just a few minutes, so carry on.
Mike, are we good? Can we start?
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome everybody tonight to Conway Hall. Welcome you to this public meeting and documentary film screening for MH17, A Call for Justice. This is also the event entitled Awaiting Trial. As many of you know, and some of you might not know, there's a trial that's going to begin in The Hague in the Netherlands on March the 9th. It's going to be in a Dutch court where they're going to, they've been indicted 3 Russians and 1 Ukrainian.
Exactly.
Most of the defendants will be tried in absentia. but that's still a developing situation even in this last week. But we're joined by a number of guests here, experts, filmmakers. We'll introduce them in a minute. This event is being broadcast live with Bonanza Media, so you can watch this on the live stream right now and also after the recorded version. Now, what we're attempting to do this evening is to present new evidence that has come to light ahead of this trial in The Hague regarding the downing of flight MH17, which happened on July 17, 2014, over eastern Ukraine. And some of you might be familiar with some of the material that's going to be presented tonight, but many of you will not be, because a lot of what is being presented tonight hasn't been presented publicly before, not in a formal way. Now, I'm an independent journalist. My name is Patrick Henningsen. I originally was in touch with the filmmakers because I'm very interested in this story, and just recently they asked me if I would come and help facilitate the panel tonight, which I was very pleased to be asked, so I've volunteered to do that this evening. And I just want to first introduce the panel. Max van der Werf is an independent filmmaker, investigator. He comes from the Netherlands. And Jana Jelešová, she is a filmmaker, a journalist. She is from Russia. And Akash Rosen, he's a digital forensics expert from Malaysia, who just flied here from Kuala Lumpur just a few days ago to the UK to present what he's going to show you this evening. Now, the film we're going to show in a minute is a project that's being led by Max and Jana. But I also want to say, more importantly, that this event is being organized with the help of an international platform called Global Rights of Peace and People. Yes, and Elena Plotnikova, she's the representative of this organization. She's here. She'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have after the event. And also, we're going to have a Q&A session after we screen the film and after each of our members of the panel presents what they're going to present in terms of evidence regarding this case. So, firstly, I think we're going to probably go into the film. So this is a documentary film, MH17, A Call for Justice. Go ahead and roll that.
I think we... Some lights. Can you dim the lights? Can we... Hi, Max. Hi. Is it very early there in Europe? Yeah? And we're already in Mahathir's hometown, Alor Setar. Yeah, that's where we're going to have an interview with him. I spoke with Mohammed Mahathir for the first time on the topic of the downed Malaysian Boeing 4 years ago. At the time, he was the opposition leader and stated that unlike the West, he doesn't see Russia's guilt in this tragedy. But now he's the leader of the country. And in the MH17 case, new details have appeared. So what will he tell me today, shortly before the 5th anniversary? Salam to Mahathir, apa kabar? My investigative partner Max van der Werf is sure the Prime Minister will be diplomatic and will say nothing out of the ordinary. The Netherlands and Australia, they formally stated that Russia is responsible for the shooting of MH17.
They are not really looking at the causes of the crash and who was responsible, but already they have decided that it must be Russia. We cannot accept that kind of attitude.
Malaysian investigative team were not allowed to become a full member of GIT for the first 6 months, I think. Do you know why?
This is unfair and unusual. The plane is ours, and there were Malaysians flying in the plane. They also died. So it's natural that Malaysia should be the first country that should be involved in the investigation. But they insist. Well, they didn't insist. They just ignored us, took the black box, and carried out their own investigation.
Yes, Jana, here is the building of the Joint Investigation Team in Rotterdam. You know, I tried very hard, sent emails for a request for an interview with Mr. Westerbeke, with other people, with representatives. They all rejected to talk to us. They don't want to answer questions. They don't give interviews at the moment. So we have 000. Nobody is interested to talk about it.
I told Jana that it was all in vain. I have already written the Joint Investigation Team more than 10 times. The answer is always the same. We will not give you an interview. We will not answer your questions.
Max, but the head of JIT gave an interview to the Russian Novaya Gazeta.
Now, of course, that's the liberal newspaper sponsored by the Dutch government.
Right.
I can't wait to see the important material that Jana brought from Malaysia. But while we are heading to the hotel, we are recalling how it was and how it all started 5 years ago at the beginning of our investigation.
I interviewed a lawyer who called on the Dutch Prime Minister to transfer the MH17 case to an independent investigation at the UN.
I'm not afraid from no one, so I took the risk. I urged the Prime Minister. I hold him liable.
Because 3 months passed and the Dutch had not even taken the debris from the crash site.
But Mr. van der Hoen was pressured to abandon his idea. I came to get comments from the lawyer, but instead of him there were two strangers in the apartment. I asked Mr. van der Go if he could comment on him being pressured.
Already told
But you told Mr. van der Go not to come, right?
That's true.
That's true.
That's absolutely
and you
true.
tell me that he's not coming, but you want to talk to me, right?
Absolutely.
They suggested to make a deal and strongly recommended not to use the first interview with a lawyer.
I'm interested in you because I know what you can do. I don't know. But if you work together, you always find things, you have contacts, you say this and that. That's how you help each other in the case that you want to build.
I decided to call this Ed Senke to clarify the situation, but without any success. We haven't been able to reach the lawyer ever since either. Hopefully everything is okay with him.
While the Dutch investigation was becoming more secretive, the Malaysian side was doing a very important job, collecting the black boxes from the conflict area in Ukraine where the plane crashed. Colonel Sakri and his team were in Kyiv the very next day after the tragedy, and after 2 days already at the crash site. But it's not as easy as it sounds.
I talked to my Prime Minister, and he directed me to go to crash sites immediately. I said, we have not allowed to go there until the such that permission from the Ukraine government. So I take a small team to leave Kharkiv, going to Donetsk secretly. So that was the mission that I have had to do it. Because why? We cannot afford to wait. Mr. Borodai was the head of the separatists. The rebel was waiting for us. And my conversation with the Mr. Borodai, they said, why are you so late? That was the, sometimes got, I think, very funny.
Our sincere appreciation to His Excellency
Я выражаю искреннюю признательность
Borodai,
его превосходительству господину Бородаю
for giving us the opportunity
за то, что он дал нам возможность
and attain our request.
At the rebel side was so welcome, and at the Ukraine side was so tense in terms of the situations. That was a blessing from Mr. Borodai to Malaysia.
So no conditions?
No, there is no condition at all.
Malaysian experts have certified that they were not tampered with.
Well, to manage that ballot box is not that easy. I was requested by the OSCE. They want the black box to be given to them in Kharkiv railway station. I was entered by the FBI. They approached me to show them the black box. I said no. At Kiev, against the Ukraine government's forcing us to leave the black box to them. We said no, we cannot allow. We are going to bring this black box to Fambaros. I cannot understand why must Ukraine involved with the in the investigation. But I do not know why Malaysia was not involved.
Okay.
Excluding one of the main aspects in this tragedy, which is the operator, Malaysia, from the investigation, it's against the rules. So if somebody in such a historical accident decide to violate so bluntly the law, the conclusion can only be they have something in mind. At least the result of this investigation team must be doubted because it is not the result of an objective investigation. Somebody was missing.
A terror attack. MH17 was flying from Amsterdam to Kuala Lumpur when a Russian-made missile blew the plane apart.
This is the work of Russian separatists.
And President Obama tonight is confident this plane was brought down by separatists supported by Russia.
They could say conflict zone, but they use this type of words. Instead of saying a missile operated by both sides, a common weapon, they say Russian manufactured book missile. And they leave out that the serial number is a missile that was in Ukraine's possession.
And a Russian-made missile blew the plane apart.
When you read something like that, you will feel somehow Russia is involved, even though it's a totally different issue. It's a political issue, it's a territorial issue, but now you'll feel, oh, Russia supplied this weapon, they used it, it's out of control, it's their fault. That's the impression you get.
Yeah, this is all world politics lah. Boys, the bigger country, we are stronger, politically influenced in the world.
Unluckily, they don't involve us in their investigation.
There's a big wall in front of us, that's stopping us from getting that next information.
We need somebody to go and investigate properly and see what is actually went wrong. This is human life, so they should try not to use politics or any political influence.
If you had a chance to ask Mr. Westerbeck, head of JT, any question, what would you ask?
Why did the West insist on us handing over the materials there? We could have conducted the investigation here. We could have conducted it in a very transparent manner. If you really want to show you're unbiased, hold it in a neutral country.
It's been shot down, somebody have to take the blame, There must be a scapegoat, So who's going to take the blame?
Wie denkt u dat het toestel heeft neergelegd?
Rusland.
Rusland, ik denk dat ook wel, ja.
De Russen, ja. Vrij zeker.
There was a thing from Russian, a rocket launcher, right?
Je hoorde de John Kerry, je hoorde Mark Rutte, je hoorde Hillary Clinton, Obama. Je hoorde alleen maar Rusland, Rusland. Als je in zo'n verwerkingsproces zit, dan word je die kant automatisch opgeduwd. Dus ik kreeg een eigen woede die ik niet kon. Dat mijn eerste gedachte was, ik ga erheen.
That day, Willem Grootscholte flew to Bali, where he had met the love of his life. He was happy. His best friend Ron already had a hard time saying goodbye to his buddy, just to learn a few hours later that he had lost Willem forever.
Je beseft het helemaal niet. Ik heb gehuild. Mijn dochtertje heeft mij voor het eerst zien huilen. Het was gewoon een echte vriendschap. We waren ook echt oprecht eerlijk tegen elkaar. Met scheldpartijen, met emoties, met huilen. Maar het was meer familie als vriend. Het is de eerste keer dat ik hier ben en het roept heel veel emoties op. Woede, onbegrip, onrust. Ik vind het monument mooi, ik ben blij dat ik er ben. Het is voor mij nog steeds een aardsbegrip dat het nog niet afgesloten is. Ik kan het nog niet afsluiten. Dus het is voor mij nog steeds belangrijk wie het gedaan heeft. Ik wil mij niet ergens naartoe laten duwen.
The wreckage of MH17 was still burning when the Ukrainian security service already posted phone taps online as proof that the rebels are guilty.
Только что сбили самолет, группа минера за Янакиева упал.
Летчики, где летчики?
Поехали искать и фотографировать сбитый самолет.
Короче, стопудово гражданский борт.
Het Openbaar Ministerie verdenkt de 4 genoemde verdachten ervan dat zij nauw hebben samengewerkt om de bukteler te krijgen en in stelling te brengen op de afvuurlocatie met als doel een vliegtuig neer te schieten. Informatiebijeenkomst voor alle nabestaanden.
One of the few things that the official investigation doesn't hide is that they accept SBU phone taps as evidence.
Joost Niemeller. Mijn vraag is, wat is de bron van de tapverslagen?
Dat zijn vooral tapgesprekken van de Oekraïense dienst.
Voornamelijk, zijn er ook nog andere bronnen?
Nee, het is tapgesprekken uit Oekraïne, om het nog even simpel te zeggen. Ja.
Записи, которые опубликовала СБУ, они утверждают, что это было 17 июля разговоры. Это правда?
Ну, по крайней мере, разговор с боцманом, который, я говорю о том, что мы сбили Су-25, я нахожусь в Степановке. Этот разговор состоялся ранее, 16-го, а с утра 17-го я находился уже в Донецке.
А как-то это можно проверить?
Ну, естественно, это может подтвердить Великая Украинская СБУ, у которых есть биллинг моего телефона.
То есть разговор, который они выложили, голос там ваш, я правильно понимаю?
Да, голос мой.
Голос ваш, разговор был, но был не в ту дату. Что еще?
Но они перекроили все.
Listening to Dubinsky, I was thinking about important information that I had already obtained about the first phone taps published by the SBU on the day of the tragedy.
Hi. Hi, Akash. Diana. Hi.
I'm Navid.
In Malaysia, we found certified audio experts who prepare reports for court cases. They verified the authenticity of the phone taps for us.
This is left channel, right channel, they are just totally different. I can see there is a difference of the noise, and I also can see they are basically some kind of merging of an audio.
This is edited.
Yes, it's edited.
That's clear.
Yes.
How is it clear?
So look at the noise level, right? The noise level is different from this audio track. If you see this audio track, the noise level at this area, they're different. And this is lower, and this is higher.
Which means that this part of the conversation is compiled of different parts of different conversations.
Yes, it's a merging of different audio. Yes. These two are same sound. You can hear? So suddenly he added this particular word here probably to hide something to make the length. And here you can see so many cut. This is clear.
Oh, these are cuts, yeah?
Yeah, you can see. Missing audio. What is this conversation? It could be there's some conversation here, they just cut it, and then just leave the last part.
Yeah.
You can see that.
It looks the strangest,
yeah.
You know, like
you see.
So different.
Yeah, it clearly shows that these are two different recordings.
These experts prepared for us a detailed 143-page report about these phone taps.
Voornamelijk, zijn er ook nog andere bronnen?
Nee, het is tapgesprekken uit Oekraïne, om het nog even simpel te zeggen. Ja.
The SBU will provide 20 different phone taps for the prosecution team. And okay, the one that was tampered in the very first, yeah, they cheated, okay, but it's not part of the evidence. So the other 20 you can trust because we checked it and we couldn't find no mistakes. Let's say that's what the prosecution team says, then...
No, this is not the way it works. You know the saying, and this saying is true, on any objective procedure, the person who lies once lies always. So if somebody lies, obviously lies, has bad intention.
Does it make the whole phone tap evidence from SBU worthless, or is that too strong an indicator?
Maybe not completely worthless, but a judge would very, very suspiciously look into these things. And if he has the slightest doubt, then he would say, well, to be on the safe side, I don't believe.
Как вы узнали о падении Боинга и что после этого последовало?
О падении Боинга я узнал от премьер-министра Александра Юрьевича Бородая вечером того же дня, в районе 23 часов, вот мое оцепление привезло мне 2 черных ящика. Я эти черные ящики, не вскрытые, не поврежденные, отвез премьер-министру.
Что, даже мысли не было как-то их припрятать?
А зачем? Прячет тот, кто виноват, что там. Ни я, ни мои подчиненные. Никакого отношения к тому, что сбили пассажирский самолет, не имеем. Мало того, ни я, ни мои подчиненные ни от кого не получали каких-то приказов.
А что тогда делать с переговорами с перехваченными СБЮ? Как вы прокомментируете записи?
Да очень просто прокомментировать. Пусть они выложат полную версию переговоров, и там будет видно, о чем, собственно, говорится.
The idea to verify the authenticity of the SBU phone taps came from our friend, independent German journalist Billy Six. He already addressed this issue with a German audio expert 3 years ago.
Also ich habe insgesamt 9 Manipulationen festgestellt. Es gibt sehr, sehr viel Spielraum, wo man sagen könnte, also da hätte man so viel drehen, schrauben und verändern können. Und ich zweifle die Authentizität dieser Aufnahmen an.
Billy was also at the crash site, looking for bug witnesses and other evidence.
When I was invited there as a witness to speak to the GIT, it didn't end very good between us, because my impression was that this kind of investigation doesn't try to discover the truth.
You used electron microscope to check alien fragments for metal remnants and glass remnants. How many impact holes in the wreckage itself did you check with such kind of electron microscope?
Nee, zo'n specifieke informatie is hier niet bekend. Dus dat zouden we na moeten vragen, maar hier kan ik die vraag niet beantwoorden.
And I also wrote them emails and never ever got any kind of answer to the question, however I asked it.
The attitude of the Dutch investigation towards the wreckage startled me from the very beginning. It took them 4 months to come collect parts of the plane for the first time. But a lot of the debris was still left behind. A year after the tragedy, locals showed us quite big and seemingly important parts of the wreckage, part of the cockpit. We were also quite shocked that the local mayor refused to take them over.
Зачем вот эту сенсацию делать? Мне она не надо вот это. Не надо. Я не хочу такой сенсации.
Dutch journalist who accompanied the mayor didn't seem to be interested in the wreckage either. We had more luck with the head of a nearby village. She accepted the parts without any problem and promised to hand them over to the Dutch. Soon after the scandal with the wreckage, the mayor was removed from his office. These parts of the plane are in the Netherlands for a long time now, but they have never been placed on the layout of MH17. And 5 years on, we keep finding new ones.
Тяжелый. Как вы нашли части самолета там?
Случайно в бурьянах наткнулся, заблестела тут часть какая-то. Потом мы его погрузили с хлопцами, и чтобы убрать его, что надо было убрать, оно мешало.
We handed over these parts to the administration of Petropavlovka, just like the last time. У нас есть часть от Боинга.
Ого, а куда ж мы его будем ложить? Какой он большой.
But let's go back to the official investigation. They presented a reconstruction of the route the book took to the launch site based on photos and videos from social media.
This image appeared on the internet shortly after the crash of MH17. The JIT used it as evidence that the rebels transported the launcher exactly on the 17th of July 2014.
One of the experts in our team noticed an interesting detail in the photo, the silhouette of a man in the window of the building opposite the parking lot.
We found this man and talked to him.
Я узнал свой силуэт. Здесь еще была другая москитная сетка. Но это событие произошло не 17-го, а накануне, за день или за два. Это два события мною разнесены во времени, это однозначно. То есть проезд вот этой техники, если это техника, и событие Грабова, ну в смысле падение самолета, это в разные дни произошло. У меня просто привычка реагировать на все.
Да?
Супруга по окнам не бегает, а мне было как бы интересно.
So the date doesn't seem to be the same as the investigation claims.
Let's check the official launch site now.
This is rebel territory. According to the JIT, this is where the Russian book was placed.
And here's the village where Valentina Kovalenko lives, the star witness of the book missile in the BBC documentary.
Начнем с того, что это замок даже не наш.
Замок не ваш?
Нет.
Вообще не ваш? А это где? Это же не Красный
Понятия
Октябрь.
не имею. Это вообще... Нет, двор наш. Церковь, в Времовке у нас шикарная церковь. Это
вообще не оттуда.
Не оттуда.
It is highly likely that attention to detail and accuracy are not the strongest sides of BBC correspondents.
Therefore, we decided to help them and convey Valentina's story in more detail.
Ну, мы с девками копали картошку. Такой взрыв. Я что-то глянула в небо. Первая мысль была, почему сбитый самолет летит вверх, а не вниз падает. У него сзади как огонь.
Откуда ракета вылетела?
Ну, где-то с этого района.
А что у нас там за район?
Степановка.
Степановка – это какая, чья территория?
Ну, тогда там укропы были в тот момент. Ну, я здесь стояла,
Может быть,
получается,
туда
вот здесь.
ушел?
Не, он прямо так шел.
Вот так, на зените,
да.
туда.
Ну, практически над нами пролетела.
Но официальная версия, ракет стартовал отсюда, 2 километра отсюда.
Мне ж сзади глаз нету, я ж спиной стояла. Когда мы услышали хлопок, повернулись, она уже летела.
Понятно. The more we looked for the bug and its missile, the more confused we got.
Our findings did not match the official version. Different dates, different evidence, different direction of the missile.
Maybe even a different type of missile.
So what do we know for sure after these 5 years?
Два военных летело. Мы смотрим в небо, пассажирские, начали их обстреливать, и они поднялись прямо под пассажирский. Мы еще ругали, говорю, неужели нельзя отменить рейсы эти?
This happened some days before the crash, but what was it like that very day?
Военный самолет пролетел, вот, в поле зрения, пролетел, взял восточнее и ушел.
100% был военный самолет, 100%. Вот ровно вот здесь был маленький серебряный военный был самолет. Вот ровно вот здесь. Это не только я видел.
Хлопок был, пуск ракеты, это очевидно было. Просто я в ракетных войсках служил. Понятия имею, что такое бук и что такое ракета с самолета.
Спрячется, это уйдет, и звук уходит в ту сторону, в торец. Потом возвращается опять сюда. Он кружил, несколько кругов сделал. И вот он выпустил и сразу туда улетел.
Everybody is so convinced the official narrative cannot even be questioned. And what really struck me was one of these statements made by a JIT representative. He said something like the area where the plane came down is too dangerous in order to do any serious investigation. That JIT told something which was not true. After that, I decided to dive in a little bit more deeper into the investigation.
To check his doubts, Stefan went to the crash site himself. In Donetsk, he was able to interview a military air traffic controller of the Ukrainian armed forces, who said that Kiev had misinformed the investigation about the military radar not working on the day of the crash.
Они все работали.
Все работало.
Все находились в полной боевой готовности.
Говорят, что там делали ремонт 17 июля.
Она ж не одна.
Угу.
Их там 3 штуки.
Угу. Именно на Чугуе.
Да, там резервная станция, которая оттуда вылетала боевая авиация.
Значит, что эти здания этого дня есть?
Есть они. В Украине они есть.
The Ukrainian government was fully aware of this danger. We have no indications that they warned anybody. So they obviously exposed the civilian aircraft to a real lethal danger. In this case, the organization, the Ukrainian government, who leads the investigation, could also be responsible for the crash by not closing the airspace.
We are interested in the rule of law, in justice for everyone, irrespective of who is involved. We have to know who actually fired the missile, and then only we can accept the report as a complete truth.
Freight floor.
I'd just like to add that that film, I believe, was released this summer, correct?
Yeah,
this past
17th
summer.
of July. Yeah.
And the investigation has since moved on, and a lot of new evidence has come to the fore. So this is really just a jumping off point for further investigations, and this is what Max and Diana are currently doing right now with Bonanza Media. Now, originally I was going to address our panel member, who, as you can see, there's an empty seat second from the end. That seat was meant to be occupied by Malaysian Colonel Mohammed Sakri bin Hussein, who made the trip from Kuala Lumpur to Britain. Unfortunately, he is not able to speak tonight, so I just wanted to...
He's the one in the documentary. He's the one who went to Donbass to recover black boxes. Yeah. And he's present here tonight. He's somewhere in the audience. But he cannot, unfortunately, come up here because...
Akash can explain.
Yeah, Akash can explain, sorry.
So
yeah.
Akash Rosen.
Good evening.
Countryman.
Yep,
Yeah.
I'm from Malaysia. I'm so sorry on behalf of Colonel Major Muhammad Sakri. He's not able to come on this platform today as instructed by the government of Malaysia. Basically, the Malaysian AG, Attorney General, basically have instructed, together with the Malaysian Armed Force, has instructed him till the date of the trials begin 9 March, sometime next week. He is not supposed to be giving more some kind of information. So I'm so sorry on his behalf. I hope the event can move on.
Yeah. As you know, there's been a change of prime minister in Malaysia very recently. So Tun Mahathir is no longer prime minister. So maybe that's what this change is all about. So he got permission with the old government to come and speak and talk more about his mission to Donbass. But unfortunately, yeah, it changed today. Yeah, so...
we're going to put a question to the Colonel regarding the controversy over what people had said was an anomaly on an official stamp. But I think you might be able to address that.
Yeah, there were some
Yana.
discussions and some criticism about the stamp. As you can see now, the stamp on the document, it says security with K. So people started speculating that it's a fake document.
But he signed with Borodai,
With Borodai, yeah. And, well, I talked to the colonel and he explained to me that they went to Donbass urgently and secretly, as you got from our documentary, and they didn't have their original stamp with them. So they asked locals to prepared to make a stamp for them, and they basically screwed up a little bit and made this mistake. So that's why it is an official document, but security comes with K. Am I right, Colonel? Where are you? I can't see you.
Well, just on the Colonel regarding his part in the documentary, I just wanted to confirm that he was instructed by Ukrainian authorities not to leave Kiev, but he went on his own volition with a team into to retrieve the black boxes.
Yeah, because he said they couldn't waste more time.
And when he returned with the black boxes to Kiev, he was confronted by...
No. He went with black boxes to Kharkov. And there he passed them on to his colleagues who took these black boxes to Kiev. In Kiev, they tried to take those black boxes to keep them. Malaysians wouldn't let them. And they took the black boxes to Farnborough, to England, actually.
The Dutch plane.
On the Dutch plane, yeah. That's how black boxes ended up in England, or, yeah.
And he did mention the FBI was waiting for him, or U.S. officials, or something like this?
In Kharkov, yeah, they approached him, but I would really, like for Colonel to explain that, but unfortunately he can't. I don't know much about that. He just mentioned that 3 or 2 people approached him, presenting themselves as FBI officers and asking. They didn't ask to take black boxes. They just asked to take a look at them. So
when we asked how it was FBI, they were wearing FBI T-shirts.
FBI, yeah.
And they were Americans. Does this answer your question?
Yes, I just wanted to clarify that. So our next panelist is a digital forensic expert from Malaysia. His name is Akash Rosen, and he's going to be sharing some of what you saw in the film, but he's also released a 143-page report on the digital forensics, the audio examination of the SBU, Ukrainian Special Secret Services leaked, wiretap, I would say, that was released right after the crash, just days after.
No, a few hours, like 4 or 5 hours after the crash, they already put those wiretaps.
They made them public, and what's important about this is this was in the court of public opinion, this was an important piece of evidence that was presented to the public in order to apportion blame to Russia or Russian-backed rebels, etc. This is why it's such a key piece of initial evidence in this story. So Akash is going to...
Yeah, and I would also like to add one small but important detail, that our choice of Akash's firm was not accidental. We chose the most serious forensic company in Malaysia. Their reports are accepted in court. So this is serious, legit report that can be presented in court as evidence.
And to date, has anybody challenged Akash's...
No, it's been 6 months, nobody challenged his report. So nobody was able to...
Well, there's always some loudmouth people on social media, on Twitter, they're shouting, it's a nonsense report, and how can you come up with a guy from Malaysia? But this is a scientific forensic report, 143 pages, and no legitimate audio expert has come forward to challenge this.
And Norman Ritter was a German...
He's a German audio expert.
And he more or less reflected some of the same conclusions that...
He was the one who did it years ago because Billy Six asked him to do so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so basically, in this part, the criticism was that we analyzed wiretaps that are not part of official investigation. They're not part of GIT. Yeah. But that was our choice because these were wiretaps that were put online a few hours after. So it is really, they didn't have much time to, fake them properly, so to say, because now with the technology, it's really possible. But Akash convinced us. He said, well, no, any fakery, even the perfect one, you still can find something if there is anything. So we asked Akash to do a new analysis for us of other wiretaps that are part of the official investigation.
Yeah.
Akash, what have you been able to find?
Hi, good evening, everyone. All right, I'm Akash Roshan from Malaysia. I'm an independent digital forensic investigative. I've been working for the last more than 10 years in digital forensic investigation, attending courts multiple times, mostly Malaysia, and I've been working investigating many other regions, other countries as well. Enterprises, personals, family matters, and things like that. Of course, in the area of digital audio and video, I've done many investigation, verification of audios especially, right? So I was approached again by Yana and Max on other videos that's been released, which was also posted on YouTube. What I found was tempered, right? So here I have some presentation slides. Before I begin, right, I need to explain a very brief, basic layman understanding how an audio video works basically. So, and also what are the process basically to be able to submit any kind of digital evidence, and it's supposed to be admissible in the court of law, any court of law, right? So, as mentioned here, you can see, right? I'm free to open any question if you want, right, on this matter. Any digital audio submission as digital evidence to court of law, you need to have the original source where it was originally recorded or where it was stored, and also the details of the audio itself. So it's called metadata of the audio. Right? So this is what we call the authenticity. I believe there's one part of the German expert in the video has mentioned authenticity is not known. Similarly, in this case, the authenticity of the audio tracks that was found in this SSU latest video, which was basically shared in YouTube, was not able to known. Right? And of course, the audio must be done. The audio acquisition has to be done from the raw of the recording file itself. And it has to be preserved. And there must be some kind of documentation has to be done from the beginning where it was recorded, saved, stored, and how it was interpreted, exported, come out with the audio, and presented out as an evidence, right? Just for your information, there's ISO 27K, that's basically a standard. Basically, ISO 27037. So you can actually have a look. This is a good practice, a standard method, processes of how any digital evidence can be used and preserved and submit to court. Now, can the part of the audio track be exported from video? Yes, it can be. Right? The part audio track must be clearly showing the source of media, as I mentioned, but in this case, it's not there. So this video, SSU radio interception between the terrorists, Boeing 777 plane crash, basically was uploaded in YouTube, and I performed the analysis, found the video has been tempered. Now, this is just basic. If you have any old video file, so it has a container where it consists of video stream and audio stream, right? So what I have done, I have taken up the audio stream and performed the analysis. Any video has both, right? So we extract from there, and there's a special command that you can run. Most of the IT guys knows this command, and he can view that. And most of the audio players can show if this is a video, this is an audio, this is how it looks like. So the stream 0.1 here is basically showing the details of the audio stream. So in this case, it is audio AAC 44K, 44.1 kilohertz. And it's a stereo channel. That means left and right should be the same channel, same frequency, and a 16-bit, right? So where is the source of the audios coming from? In this case, what I see, it has been intercepted by some agency. So I'm putting agency so you understand who I meant, right? So the agency is law enforcement. So they are using special audio to intercept. So there's some special devices they have Normally, this agency has to use them in order to, because of the protection perimeters of their country, right? So they have this equipment which is very vast, and it can capture the live phone calls. So when they intercept that call, there could be many audios in the range of that particular, live phone call. So from this intercepted audio track, what I've seen many background noise of other people or some speakers talking. So I strongly believe there was some filtration has been done, and those filtrations basically has left some traces which I've seen. It could be some kind of addition as well over there, right? And of course, if there are certain filtration they are doing just to have those interception which is specific to a person, it has to be documented. It has to be basically written how was the process has been taken out, exported out, and how it was filtered. And this is what we have as a audio, exactly conversation between both, but it was not there as well. So moving on, agency-based audio recording. The audio recording format may be in different format. They may have some other format, but again, if those format, it has been documented in such a way how it has been exported, then it's accepted. But in this case, it does not. And for your information, any exporting file does not actually change the content. So what it does, the compression of the audio changes. So it's just a compressing the file, make it more smaller, right? So depends what kind of conversion format they have used. It has to be documented as well. Now, exporting file does not change the spectrum, the noise floor, and this can be used for analysis. That is what exactly I have done. I will show you that audio in a while, how it's being done, so you can understand exactly how we can analyze those audio, right? And of course, the agency does not intercept calls, does intercept calls, so they have many recordings. So in this case, what I believe that there are many audios that have been recorded. It could be during the day after or before, which have some similar wordings which that means to the case or to some event. So they probably have picked that and put it in the audio saying that, look, this is what has been spoken, right? So this is where the authenticity of an audio that's being presented on that particular day has to be shared, has to be documented, has to be basically submitted. So in this case, many audio files can be merged, edited, and shared, uploaded in YouTube. Now, the YouTube is a channel where everyone used to share their videos. So we can see that what is being done, there are text transcription of the video, like the next one, right? So this is the audio stream of SSU Boeing 777 plane crash, book M1, which was dated 17/07, July 2014. So this is the video, right? What I've done, I've just took out the video properties, and I found that it has been published in 18 July 2014. And of course, these are the details of the file, which are the format that has been uploaded. When I find more details about this audio, the ID is verified, genuine ID has been posted. This is the first level of verification. If you look at this particular small sign, it shows that this ID is being verified and genuine by Google. So the owner has provided certain credentials showing that this ID is not an anonymous ID, it's genuine ID. So you need to know this. Then, when I perform more detailed analysis, last modified showing 9th November 2018, right? So again, we are seeing this has been modified 9th November 2018, but date of publish is showing as 18 July. So that's the date of modification. If you can't see that, I just enlarge that. I can see Friday, 09 November 2018. I agree this is on the YouTube side, but again, if you do any changes in the YouTube, it will basically show this date, when was it last modified. So if it was published on the 17th of July 2014, if it's not being updated, it won't show here. Now, what I've seen, what I've seen here, when I open up the audio, I'm seeing there are so many tracks here. So we have identified track A, track B, and track C is the person who basically has created this video. So that is not counted. But you can see track 1, track 2, track 3, 4, 5, and 6. This was the intercepted audio. So this intercept audio is basically the audio that was translated to text transcription. So I have analyzed all of them, and I found there are some tampered. How? I'll show you. The spectrogram level and the left and right channel shows it is a stereo channel, right? If you see here, it's clearly shown track 3 having different noise floor and different audio spectrum. It clearly shows that there are 2 different audio has been added as one single audio. Now, this is just a summary of track. Track A, this is the news anchor. Track 1, who was talking the first track which was added, intercepted. The second track was intercepted between Kumuri and Buryat. I'm sorry about my pronunciation. So they are the militants, the terrorists. Same goes to track 3, track 4, track 5. This was with Kumuri with DNR. Track 6, this was Kumuri with Boatsman. All these details basically was published in the YouTube. Now, I label them 6 different tracks so that it can be identified easily. Now, what we have done here, we first identify from which period to which period it starts and ends, and we pick up that audio track and analyze them, right? So we have the detail shows here, this was taken, recorded, or intercepted on July 14, 2014, 1912. See, this is just a text placed there on the YouTube. So what is the authenticity is not known. So we need to have a proper documentation showing that this is the audio was intercepted during this period, it was stored, this date, and this was taken out. And what was the process? None, right? Similarly, we can see for all the tracks here. Yana, Max, do you have any questions on these tracks? Any specific tracks that you want to, tracks that you want to say, or anything that you have a special tracks that's been?
No, anything you want to.
Okay, fine. So this is track 1. So how do you see this? This is the noise floor. Basically, this is the signals wave spectrogram. A person talks, there will be some voice, there will be signals going up, right? So from here, we can analyze it has been tempered. Now, we have some samples. We have some samples that we have done a lot of editing of audio. So we know how it looks like if we edit and merge an audio, right? So nowadays, there are quite a lot of tools that when you do some merging, you cannot really identify unless you have done many kind of editing of audio. Then you know, right? Now, this is audio track 2. Just to give you a view, the left channel, right channel, they're supposed to be same because it's stereo, right? It looks same. When you hear it, it sounds that it's genuine. But when you look at the noise floor, you know, an audio track, you know whether it has been edited. This is clear edit. You can see left and right channel, they are not the same. So this is clear edit actually. They're not the same, right? Look at this audio, they're missing audio, missing audio, missing
Akash,
audio.
Does it mean, just in a simple language, does it mean that what one person is saying, the other is answering not to this person, the other person is taken from a different conversation?
Yes, yes. The next few slides is showing you exactly what it is, right? So this is another audio. This
so that
was
it's
taken
clear
from
that
another
it's
audio.
not basically just cut, you know,
Yeah.
like they cut out maybe some boring parts, left it out, and then put, it's not basic cut, it's merging of different conversations into one.
Yes.
Okay.
So there are two different audio here. Here we have seen a lot of merging, right? This is just the audio spectrum which I'm showing you. So I'm just going to fast one. This is audio track 5. This is audio track 6. Now I'm going to go into the section of findings. Tampering detected. Now, all audio recording was taken from multiple sources. No metadata of audio was seen. It can be coming from multiple sources. It is basically not genuine. This is already a fact. Now, each track here, I have found suspicious merging in audio track 1. Audio track 2, it was a cut audio from somewhere else and just place it there. Of course, analyses are still being in progress because they're quite a lot. Track 3, we can see different left and right channels coming from different audio merging. Right, spectral analysis shows the edit cut. There's overlay scene. Overlay is basically merging of two audios put together. Then you see the overlay. It looks like they are the same, right? And spectral audio, the third one basically we show voice overlapping and cut has been seen. When I say voice overlapping, this is where probably the filtration has been taken place, but some part of the conversation, the filter did not picked up or clear that particular audio signal. So we can hear that. Of course, track 4, we are seeing merging. Track 5 is suspicious, analysis still being in progress. And track 6, we are seeing video was cut. We are seeing overlapping, and we're seeing 2 overlapping over there. Now, this is what I'm seeing. There are about 7 different audios being added. And track 3 has 2 different audio. So there's not 6 audio, there's 7 actually. And in between, they are merging of many audios. So there could be more, there's actually more than 7 audios being added here. Now, this is clear editing. The facts, the audio track in this audio are intact. When I say intact, whoever has done this video, they put this audio after the filtration has been done, after the process of modification, editing, overlaying, they put it in this audio. We can use this audio track and analyze to see whether there was any tampering. Even though it goes to any kind of compressions, any kind of format change, it does not change the wave signal, does not change any details, but whatever that's been cut, we can still trace them. Using spatial spectral format, the source wave for analysis, the noise floor for abnormality, of course the channel, mono or stereo, and of course it is showing 8 kilohertz audio. It means it's a telephone conversation. So whatever we see 8 kilohertz, it's telephone conversation. So of course, this is genuine telephone conversation. So it can be conference call, it can be calls that's been intercepted. So, track 1, if you look at this, right, this area is basically showing suspicious overlay. This is suspicious overlay, and here we see suspicious overlay. So when I say suspicious overlay, when you hear this, you can see some voice coming up. And this is one straight channel that is basically voice that is kind of merging. The next one, track 2, you have direct cut. The audio just stops there, cut. So the audio and the speaker was speaking and basically it's taken from somewhere else. The third one, the third audio track, we are seeing different noise floor. You can see here clearly there are no sound, the sound wave here is different than above one. If I move on next, you can see there are some overlay here as well. So this is clearly tampering. Here we have suspicious audio track being merged. So I'll show you the audio, how it sounds like. Just give me a moment. That's the audio. Okay.
So
Maybe I use the time to ask a clarification
Ты где
question.
вообще?
All these analyses are relevant because very important proof in the court case will be phone taps from rebels. And these are all tapped recordings from rebels. But the only supplier of these phone taps was the Secret Service of Ukraine. And you're demonstrating that this organization cannot be trusted because they are editing the phone taps. So the technical stuff is all very interesting, but this is my interpretation. Is it correct?
Well, as long you can produce the authenticity of the audio, right? Then it's fine. If you can't produce, then yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Right. And can you compare the first analysis you made for us and this one? This one was more, how do I say, like...
The first one has more. The first one has more tempering. But again, as I mentioned, the sound wave and the noise floor, if you can see that there's no tempering, that's genuine. But in this case, as long as a merging is being detected, it's already been tempered.
Well, it makes sense that the falsifications of the previous ones are more obvious because they had less time to doctor them, right?
Yeah,
I mean, this is my layman logic.
Yeah, can you tell that these ones were skillfully tempered?
Yes,
or,
yes.
Or are they also very
however,
obvious?
the tempering is done, it was done by some experts. That's all I can say.
So in comparison to the first wiretaps that you analyzed for us, you can see the difference?
I can see the difference, yes. I can see. It is a bit difficult to trace in this audio, but again, looking at track 3, when I first saw this, this is the way I see this. This is track 1. This is track 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So when I look at track 3, right, so I enlarge this area, you can hear it's clearly different. It's the noise floor. There is no any voice here. There is no voice here. It's two different audio that has been added in stereo. So this is basically not genuine to me.
Ты где вообще сейчас? Ты одну или две привез, скажи мне?
Нет, одну, потому что там у них пошла непонятка, они наш трал не перекинули сюда.
Я понял.
Грузили и своим ходом пригнали.
Смотри, ты ее не она своим ходом пришла или на трале?
Перешла через полоску.
А сейчас ты привез ее на трале, да?
Да.
Значит, смотри, ты ее никуда не Сейчас я скажу, куда ей выдвигаться, она вместе с танками Востока пойдет, ясно?
Right. You can see, you can hear it sounds exactly genuine. But here,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It sounds genuine, yeah.
But if you analyze here, you were able to see there are two different audio. And let me just go to audio track 2, right? Sorry. Track 2, I'm just going to the end. Hear that.
Не надо ее никуда прятать, она сейчас уйдет туда. Ты понял?
Done. He's talking. It was just cut. Right? So this is some of the sample that we do to analyze. Let me just proceed. Where was I? Hang on. Okay. So there's suspicious. Track 5, we are still analyzing. Track 6, there's a lot of cut. You can see this is cut and merge. Any signs that shows all the way high is basically merging. Now, we see overlaying. If you hear this area, you will see double overlaying. That means it's a merging, right? Distortion. And of course, similarly, we hear more distortion in this area. So, by default, if there is no source of recording provided and no source of original details, it is suspicious, bogus conversation or audio or evidence that's being produced until at least a source is provided. So, as a summary, this is not genuine. Okay. Yeah, this is not genuine, and the audio has no any detail of where it was coming from. We need to have the source of recording, the date and time, change of custody, interception process, high level, full documentation how this was obtained. Thank you.
Thank you, Akash. So, based on what Akash has just presented, and looking at audio evidence that has been drifted out into the media or that's being submitted for the joint investigation team for the JET investigation and might be used in the court case coming up in The Hague, not just audio evidence, but visual evidence, images of Buk missiles that many of them you've identified as having an anonymous source. The metadata has been tampered with. In other words, a photograph that was said to have been taken on a certain date but was really taken on a date much earlier than that. Just explain the significance of this, because a lot of this was used as foundational evidence to set up the MH17 narrative in the immediate aftermath of the disaster. But do you want to comment on any of that?
Yeah, I checked on the spot in Donbass all the presented evidence from social media. I went to all the locations, I looked at all the photographs, tried to reconstruct them, and what I noticed is from all the evidence that's presented, there's no original data. It's all secondary data. It's cropped images, it's low resolution. Videos look very suspect. Cannot find on a location. You ring 50 doorbells, nobody saw anything, but there's one anonymous guy who says he saw something, but we don't know who he is. So it's all very troublesome.
And what we recently learned already, those of you who saw our leaked documents from JIT, we know that back in 2016, 2 years after the crash, Australian police was still analyzing cropped...
2015.
2015, was analyzing still cropped images 1 year after the crash.
Yeah, so the Australian police didn't have the original images from the Ukraine Secret Service to analyze, even more than a year after the event, which in itself is quite surprising, if you ask me.
So, including images that were put out in the mainstream media, like Paris Match, for instance, that image of the Buk missile launcher, which presumably, according to the press, was a Russian missile launcher, came from Russia across the border into the eastern part of Ukraine, put into position, deployed, hit the airliner, and then was moved back to Russia. This is one of the main narratives, I think, from the Dutch.
Very much first claimed that one of the photographers made the pictures, and it took them a couple of days to put them online with an article. But then later it was a freelancer who took the shots. And then when the joint investigation team made a presentation in September 2016, they said, no, these are stills from a video. And then the French from Paris Match said, yeah, well, there was one of our drivers, he came back to the hotel and he showed us the video.
So the story changes every time.
It's amazing how stories change.
And you have to understand, we're trying really hard to look into this scenario of official investigation, and we haven't been able to confirm what they're saying. Along the way, the more we dig, the more confused we get, because a lot of fakes or information that cannot be confirmed as GIT claims that it is. Like this tampering with wiretaps in itself, it's one of their major evidence that they're basing their scenario on. So basically, really 5 years on, there are more questions than answers. We are, I would say, Max and me, with our research, with our latest trip to Donbass, we've been able, with help of donors, to go to Donbass. By donors, I mean crowdfunding. We're doing like live streams and videos, and we're asking people who want to support our project to donate. We've been able to make a trip to Donbass, and we found a lot of interesting...
Based on the leaked documents we have, we found some documents with witnesses, right?
We found all kind of witnesses, and we are making a lot of reports. We're at the moment doing a lot of reports, and one of these reports we want to present to you now. It's also interesting, and it has some relevance to what Akash has been saying. But without further ado, let's watch it, and then you can ask us questions.
It's a 5-minute video, so it's not a long one.
Yep.
Usually when going to Donbass, we search for witnesses going from door to door, quite literally.
This time it was a bit different. We knew exactly who we were looking for.
Александр! Александр!
We didn't catch Alexander the first time around. His neighbor said he went to Ukraine for a few days to get his pension, and she gave us his mobile number to arrange a meeting.
So we did, and a few days later finally met Alexander and heard his story.
Так главное, тут никогда пассажирские не летали. Никогда.
Александр Альбертович, расскажите, 17 июля 2014 года, где вы были, что делали?
Я находился тут, на огороде, а вот тут у меня были помидоры. Вон, пустое место, но тут летит, вот тут почему-то, где вот тут деревья орех, пассажирский. Удивился большой, никогда тут я не видел пассажирские самолеты. Облака вот сюда правее, и вот так летел. Его отчетливо было видно.
Вы же не знали тогда, что будет. Почему вы поняли, что это пассажирский самолет?
Так он по объему больше. И летели Боинг, а рядом летят два истребителя. Крыло в крыло, почти крыло в крыло.
Крыло в крыло, 100 метров, 50 метров.
Я не могу точно сказать. Крыло почти в крыло.
Понятно.
А куда военные самолеты полетели, вы говорите?
Они следом по этой траектории шли.
То есть следом за пассажирским?
Да.
А вы еще видели самолет пассажирский или он уже скрылся?
Он еще чуть был виден, а эти уже вот там показались.
Alexander said he told the same story to the Dutch investigators via Skype way back in 2015.
That's when we had to tell him we already knew it and came to check.
А почему вы решили и как вы вообще решили позвонить следователям?
Ну, по телевизору номер, который не оплачивается, так и так, кто знает об этой трагедии. На всех телеканалах было.
Вы решили позвонить, и что им сказали?
Сказали, что летел пассажирская, сзади два истребителя. По той же траектории.
Сколько раз у вас был контакт?
2 раза.
Только 2 раза.
А зачем второй раз они перезванивали?
Так направление было. Я говорю, какие дальше города? Я говорю, дальше Кировск. Но летел не по Кировску, а левее. Как раз на Петропавловку.
Они спросили вас про БУК?
Они говорили, а там установку видели? Я говорю, не было тут установок.
Well, that's probably when the Dutch lost interest and never called again.
Or ever came to check the witness testimony.
Рядом. Рядом. Сюда.
Don't be deceived by Alexander's simple looks. Despite his simple, uneasy life, he tries to keep up with the modern world and is quite smart and analytical.
This GIT witness was the one who pointed out to us the inconsistency in Wiretap's narrative, published by Ukrainian Secret Service, when the MH17 wreckage was still burning.
Значит, самолет рассыпался в воздухе в районе шахты Петропавловской. Первый 200-й, нашли первого 200-го.
Луганская область. Шахта Петропавловская.
В Донецкой области нет шахты Петропавловской?
Нету, возле нас нету.
There's no such mine in the area where MH17 was falling apart and crashed, says the local. Did SBU edit the content of wiretaps to accuse the rebels of what they didn't do?
We did fact-checking. Other locals confirmed there is no open or closed Petropavlovskaya mine anywhere near Petropavlovka.
But in neighboring Lugansk region, near Lysychansk town, there certainly used to be a Petropavlovskaya mine, now closed. And 14th July 2014, just 3 days before the MH17 crashed, rebels did down a fighter jet exactly in that area.
So is that what the wiretap was really about? Because now it certainly sounds like it.
And is quite smart and analytical.
This GIT witness was the one who pointed out to us the inconsistency in Wiretap's narrative, published by Ukrainian Secret Service, when the MH17 wreckage was still burning.
Значит, самолет рассыпался в воздухе в районе шахты Петропавловской. Первый 200-й, значит, первого 200-го.
Луганская область. Шахта Петропавловская.
В Донецкой области нет шахты Петропавловской?
Нету, возле нас нету.
There's no such mine in the area where MH17 was falling apart and crashed, says the local. Did SBU edit the content of wiretaps to accuse the rebels of what they didn't do?
We did fact-checking. Other locals confirmed there is no open or closed Petropavlovskaya mine anywhere near Petropavlovka.
But in neighboring Lugansk region, near Lysychansk town, there certainly used to be a Petropavlovskaya mine, now closed. And 14th July 2014, just 3 days before the MH17 crashed, rebels did down a fighter jet exactly in that area.
So is that what the wiretap was really about? Because now it certainly sounds like it.
So, Max and Yana, do you just want to explain the significance of that discovery?
Sure.
In a nutshell.
Do you want to explain?
I think it's important to preface this. Many people in here are familiar with this case, with this story. This was a major international event. You have two basic binary narratives, which is that the official U.S.-led, NATO-led, Western-led narrative, mainstream media narrative, dare I say, is that Russia or Russian-backed separatists shot down a passenger airliner over eastern Ukraine using a Russian-made Buk surface-to-air missile, a type of a Buk missile. And then the other side, the counter-narrative on this is that that might not have happened. What could have happened is that Ukrainian fighter jets may have shot down the plane. I'm not going to get into the speculation of by accident, intentional on either end of those narratives. But what we
Well, it's not even about shutting down the plane with fighter jets. It's about, I don't understand how official investigation can avoid, the presence of fighter jets. That's more than 100% sure that there were fighter jets. We've been able to find so many witnesses. But what's amazing with this witness is that it was interviewed by GIT. Mm-hmm. So GIT absolutely got witnesses and not the only one. We know that for sure because we have a lot of leaked documents from GIT that prove that there were fighter jets in the close proximity to Boeing around the time of the accident.
If you claim that all these witnesses are making it up or they're lying, then you're really a conspiracy thinker.
Because you have more than one witness who's testified.
There's dozens of them. And even, the BBC reported them the first day and they deleted that part. So
it should be part of the investigation, it should be considered in this scenario at least.
Jana and I were looking at the evidence, we're checking the evidence. We're not claiming the official version is incorrect, we just say there's too many inconsistencies. And the complete story is Ukraine had working radar, they were flying with their military jets on the 17th. Why are they lying about this? So we caught them with faking audio taps. So this is getting very serious because they're the main supplier of all the evidence.
And do you understand?
This is what we have a very big problem with this official investigation for this reason.
And just to reiterate, the members of the joint investigation team are the Netherlands.
Yes.
The Ukraine.
Yes.
And
Belgium.
And Belgium.
Australia.
And Malaysia. But Malaysia was not allowed.
6 months after.
Yeah.
GIT
They
was
had
founded.
to ask to be included, correct?
Yep.
So they had to demand that they be included in this process. Is Russia included in this process?
No, of course not.
So Ukraine is included, and you have evidence that you believe is fairly irrefutable that there was manipulation in audio
Well, I
wiretaps.
think Akash made his case very
Yeah,
clear.
he's a professional, he's an expert, so...
And that's backed up by other analysts as well.
Yeah.
And also the visual evidence as well, that there was manipulation with metadata, with photographs. It's not primary evidence.
But to reconstruct what really happened on that fatal day, there has to be the Ukrainian fighter jets in the mix. It could be that rebels or Russian forces did have a book after all, and that they tried to fire on the jets and they missed and they hit the civilian plane. Then it's already a very different story compared to there were some drunk idiots and they shot down a passenger plane and there was no other planes in the area. So we just want to know the entire truth.
So there's a lot of emphasis and a lot of credit and adulation's been heaped on open source investigation. This is like the latest trend. This is being championed in the media. The mainstream media quite rely on open source AussieNet investigations, and groups like Bellingcat, for instance, that have presented a version of the story that tends to get reflected by some of the bigger media outlets, print and also broadcast. So, but do you think that the problem is in the process of the investigation, where if you have a narrative and then you go to try to assemble evidence that you find online to fit a certain, predisposed narrative, rather than you're taking a different approach to your investigation, aren't you?
Well, we don't know what the JIT has. We're very curious. But when you're watching the court proceedings, then watch how much of official evidence you get to see, the original evidence. So an anonymous witness can be tampered, also can be a fake witness. SBU stuff that was given to them, phone taps, everything. How much is really reliable? Just use your own mind and follow.
And even in the Dutch case, which is going to be starting in The Hague,
Yeah.
The U.S. government is supplying classified information to the court.
We have a new leak for you today to present. It kind of concerns what you're mentioning now.
Yeah.
So, Max, go ahead.
Okay, we have a leaked document from a conference of the JIT countries, a meeting of the JIT leaders. And it is from 2nd of February. 12th of February 2016, sorry. It's minutes of the JIT leader meeting. You can see it on the screen. I'll read it here. There were 4 countries present, Belgium, Australia, and they have their talking points, Netherlands.
No, Malaysia.
And then we can see in this, they're discussing different things. And there were 2 things. We made a screenshot. We made 2 screenshots. The first one, please. Yeah. So the meeting started at 9:20 hours after unsuccessful attempts to connect both Royal Malaysia Police and Malaysia Attorney General offices. So it's quite surprising they couldn't
Reach
fix any
Malaysians, so they decided
communication.
to proceed without them, discussing sensitive issues.
So that was surprising to us. And
What was the issue?
the second screen, maybe I read it all out loud. You can read the yellow and the green print. So one of the persons, from the Netherlands, says in this meeting, there's a lot about this subject in Dutch media and parliament about satellite pictures. It appears people are just beginning to read the Dutch Safety Board report in detail, and questions are arising why this report did not receive primary data from the Russian Federation nor from Ukraine. So this question has been answered by both nations, but it's being questioned by the media. The media is also suggesting the US has more information that could be contributed. And now the Dutch say, we haven't received anything concerning satellite data from the United States up till today. And you just noticed a few days after the event, John Kerry said, we saw the trajectory, we saw the missile, we saw the impact, they didn't give anything to the joint investigation team. So that's
At least 12 of February 2016.
Yeah, so people are getting confused because they don't know the difference between primary and secondary data. The parliament held a round table, so and so, but shove comes to push, the US did not give any radar data to the Dutch.
The recent crash of Iranian plane comes to mind, where they based all their evidence on American satellite data and information that the states provided. They were very efficient, very fast to do that. But with MH17, it seems very different.
Yeah.
So
that would be the quickest path to finding out what happened, wouldn't it, if it was available? Yeah.
That's my first question. Just tell us what happened. Why does it have to take 5 years if everything is so clear? Really?
So a lot of the SBU wiretaps, they're not being submitted as part of the official.
They are.
They are.
These wiretaps that Akash analyzed today, they are part of official investigation.
And has there been the kind of rigorous analysis that we saw with Akash? Is that also being conducted to interrogate the evidence on the Dutch side, on the JIT side? Are they doing that level of vetting of the audios?
Well, we'll see in court what they come up with.
We don't know that. Yeah, right. We'll see in court. Maybe they provide the originals.
One of the things that interests me about your work, and by the way, Bonanza Media, I think it's about 1 year now that you put this organization together. It's a consortium of international independent journalists from Holland, Russia, also Germany, and a number of other contributors that you have. What interests me most about Max, when I first spoke to him or heard him talk, was Max said, I don't know who did this, who's responsible for this. I'm following the evidence. And if it's Russia, if it's the Ukrainian government, if it's somebody else, let the chips fall where they may. You're following the evidence. And I was impressed by that because this is a very difficult position to take these days because...
No, that's the only right position to take. That's about common sense, It's not about hysteria, hypocrisy, it's about common sense. And common sense tells us that there's something really wrong with the official investigation. We don't know what we also, I think Max will side with me, we also don't know for sure what happened. We're spending a lot of time working and digging for evidence, and we're still not sure what happened. But with our resources, we still get a clearer picture of what happened than GIT does. It seems like it.
Well, we get a leaked document about Mr. Albertovic in Yanakievo. They never visited him. We went to his place and we talked to him for half a day.
And there are more witnesses like that. The reports are coming.
We have many more documents. Like this is just today. Saturday we're in The Hague again. We're going to leak another document.
In The Hague we're going to leak another, we think sensational document.
Yeah.
We're holding it till The Hague, one day before the trial.
And we're going to put all the documents online, the full versions, high quality resolution. On the YouTube channel of Bonanza Media, you can watch back our live stream, and I'll put a link to the documents and also to a newsletter for all of you that you can verify the things we discussed today. I hope that will be useful.
Yep.
This event is so geopolitically loaded. MH17 it formed the basis or the disintegration of U.S.-Russian relations, of European-Russian relations. It's also the basis of sanctions as well. So, the weight on this particular incident and who is to blame carries a great significance. This is why it's an incredibly complex case.
It is.
It's very complex, but some investigators, I won't mention any names again, but apparently had it all figured out within days, I guess, or immediately.
The court case still has to start, but like in the Netherlands, I don't know in the UK, but the atmosphere is that you just doubt the prosecutors. That already makes you an idiot, or makes you a Kremlin troll, or makes you a dishonest person who has an agenda. And it's just the official court proceedings still have to start. And already you have to side not with the judge or with the defense, but you have to side with the prosecutor. This is amazing. I've never seen anything like it.
So, Jana, you had an interesting quote in one of your pieces that you guys published. You said, there isn't much room for the truth. Only what matters is who's better at the information wars.
Oh, yeah.
Explain
Russia sucks at information wars, so...
But that's what's driving the narratives these days is who can put the most slickest media package together to convince the public that something happened But that's not what your investigation's about.
Yeah, that's what I just said. There's so much hypocrisy going on, really. So basically, when you voice a different opinion, you're automatically labeled. All they do, they don't debunk the things we do. They don't challenge the evidence that we bring. All they do is they insult us, they label us. Well, that's basically, the level of the fight that they're, having. But, for me, it's like, really, it's who the first says something, who is better at information wars, he owns the audience, most of the audience. I understand next of kin, they need something to hold on to. They need to know the truth. So it is so easy to manipulate them. To tell them the story, they want to believe the story. That's calming for them, that's kind of a consolation for them. But for me, and I already told that before, I think this is seriously, this is a crime, to manipulate people who lost their loved ones. And that's what I think Dutch are doing publicly in the media, politicians, divide and conquer. Mm-hmm. That's basically the concept. They're not looking for the truth.
I think it's easy to forget with all the backwards and forwards and the battling of organizations, narratives, governments, that you're talking about 283
298
in total, plus crew, 298 victims in this, and that does tend to get lost. What also gets lost is there's a brutal civil war taking place in the Ukraine. That's really what it is. Between Eastern and Western Ukraine. It's a brutal civil war. A lot of people have suffered. A lot of people have been displaced.
12,000 dead.
And you know how locals in Donbass and crash area, they've been very helpful. These people, they really wanted to help us find out the truth. Because something like this never happened in their territory. It was a major crash during the war times.
And there were 800 miners who helped collecting the dead and the body parts, and imagine
they
found dead children in the field, and so for them they were traumatized all in the area, a lot of people.
So it's easy to want to take a political side or a geopolitical side in this for a lot of people and organizations, and you've tried to stay clear of that as much as possible.
Yeah, I'm appealing all for common sense, Let's be about common sense.
So we'd like to open up a question and answer session, and I believe we might have somebody helping, spotting in the audience, and then if anybody wants to start, for any of the panelists, Akash, for Yana, and also for Max. I think Yelena's going to come down. I think along this side, middle, this gentleman has his hands up.
Yes, I'd like to ask what the format of the trial will be. If Russia is in the dock, will it be allowed to supply evidence in its defense?
Did you get the question?
Well, there's one of the accused, Oleg Polatov. He hired a team of lawyers. So there's going to be a defense. There was first talk about there would be a trial in absentia, nobody would show up, and then the Dutch prosecutor could just do his case, and there were some lawyers appointed by the court. But now there's going to be a serious defense. There's a Dutch law firm with 18 lawyers. They're going to do all the defense, and there's one Russian lawyer also involved in the team. So it's going to be very interesting. The prosecutors, sources say they have compiled 30,000 pages of evidence against the suspects. So the lawyers probably have to study all the 30,000 pages, and they're going to challenge every part of the evidence that the prosecutors are bringing up. So it's going to be very fascinating to follow this, how it's going to unfold. Is that an answer to your question?
Well, are these really independent people?
Independent lawyers, you mean?
Yeah.
That I don't know behind the scenes.
That's between the defendant and counsel. I think everyone's entitled to take legal counsel.
Maybe this Oleg Pulatov, one of the suspects, maybe he gets support from Russia in the defense. I don't know. The lawyers, they cost like 300-400 euros an hour. So I don't know how Mr. Pulatov is going to pay for this. So it's a valid question you ask, but I don't have the answer to that. You have?
No, but I think it's a requirement that Dutch lawyers should represent.
It's a Dutch court case.
Yeah.
It has to be Dutch lawyers who represent the suspects.
Yeah.
And they can be helped or supported by foreign lawyers, but they have no official status in the case.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
There's a gentleman over here in the middle.
Yeah, hi there, thanks very much. I know it was a Malaysian airplane. It took off from the Netherlands, I think, and it was full of Australians. But can you remind us why Belgium was part of the JIT? And also, I understand the black boxes ended up in Britain. Was the information from that ever released?
Why is Belgium part of the JIT? That's the first part of your question.
Yeah, what's the second part? I missed it, sorry.
Black boxes in Farnborough. Why did they come to
Ah.
Malaysia agreed to send the boxes to Farnborough under very heavy pressure from the Netherlands and other JIT countries. So from what I understand from Malaysian sources, they were just scared to go solo and get lambasted by the other investigation countries.
But was the information from those black boxes ever released to the public, rather than just into the court system?
Acoustically, I cannot understand.
The information from the black boxes, were they?
Well, they were read out. There were Malaysians present when the boxes were opened, probably the Malaysians never got all the data that was on the black boxes.
No, they never got the data. So they confirmed that.
They didn't.
The black boxes they opened in front, in the presence of Malaysians, but they never got raw data, copy of raw data of black boxes.
And to your question about Belgium, there were Belgian victims on board, but there were more victims from Indonesia and from Germany and from the UK. So why they chose Belgium instead of these countries? I have asked these questions publicly, but there's no answer.
Okay, thank you.
Good question. Just here, yes. Please.
Yes, thank you. Maybe my question isn't directly relevant, but I seem to remember when this story first came out, it was that most airlines were not flying over that region, but they had the air traffic control in Kiev had specifically told this plane to fly over that region, and at the same time, if I remember right, there was in the air traffic control, it was being led by a Spanish guy who we never heard of.
Let's not bring up the Carlos hoax. We are so tired of this. This is completely false. This Carlos, he's a fake. He has been debunked a long time ago. This is very wild conspiracy territory.
Okay. But
so please.
The point that you was made earlier is the U.S. will, through its satellites, will have all the intercepts of everything, and if they're not giving it out, there's a reason for that, sure.
That's an invitation to speculate. You should ask John Kerry. It's very hard to give any comment on this for us.
Yeah,
I think
we were surprised
it's a very
when we
legitimate
got
question.
this document. We were surprised when we read this line. They didn't give us anything.
I think embedded in his question is the point of why was the airliner directed to go over a live fire zone, over a war zone? Is this an issue that you've come across?
Ukraine was, there were a lot of downings of fighter jets a few days before, like two fighter jets were downed. So basically Ukraine knew that there was some kind of equipment and rebels can shoot down fighter jets.
But the Dutch Safety Board already said that Ukraine should have closed the airspace. There's no excuse.
Yeah.
But it's not part of the criminal investigation. The people who didn't close the airspace, they're not liable in the sense of the joint investigation team. It's excluded from the investigation.
Well, it's not part of technical investigation, but probably it should be a part of criminal investigation still.
Well, there's also next of kin who sue Ukraine for not closing the airspace. But the Dutch government so far has refused to support these people. They support the next of kin with their case against Russia in the ECHR, the European Court of Human Rights, but not the next of kin who sue Ukraine. So this is all politics, Patrick.
Prejudice.
This is politics.
Yes, just in the back middle there. Yes, sir.
Yes, so my name is Chris Barrett. I'm speaking on behalf of the Economic and Philosophic Science Review, EPSR. It seems to me, look, there's not going to be any justice because what you've got is a fascist government in Ukraine being backed by the US empire, and that this is a government that is supported by the Maidan movement who wave swastikas, and that, in fact, there are now so many disgusting incidents of imperialism trying to win public opinion to its side in the most disgusting and despicable way. For example, everything from the Gulf of Tonkin incident.
If you could,
sorry to interrupt. What's the question?
Yes, if you can wrap it up into a question, please, if you have one. Yep.
The question would be, investigative journalism, you can keep fighting away like this in a piecemeal way, but it is not going to end this disgusting warmongering system.
So you suggest we just do nothing?
No, by all means carry on the investigation, but then don't stifle the voices who come to a conclusion, which is my conclusion, which is fight imperialism, end the system of capitalism, which is causing all this warmongering and all this fascist, disgusting excrescence coming back.
It's more like a statement than a question, sir. And Jana and I, we really try to stay away from politics as much as possible, because this is we regard this as a forensic case, as an investigative journalist case, and of course, geopolitics already, of course,
this investigation. Yeah.
But we try to stay away from that subject. It's others who can do that much better than us. It's exactly. like people like Patrick, for example.
Just in the back,
Lana, please. In regards to your divide and Lana, Jana?
One final.
Sorry. In regards to your divide and conquer statement, I don't really want to follow that last speaker with a political question, but do you think the timing of the M17 crash was anything to do with the election of Donald Trump in his support of Russia, as opposed to the sort of the opposition against Russia?
Are you saying that the timing of the MH17 incident?
Yeah.
That was in July of 2014, and the U.S. election was in 2016.
Yeah, I know, but it's a build-up, isn't it? So.
But it was before he announced his candidacy, so I don't know if that's relevant.
No, we don't speculate on things like that. We seriously avoid any speculation. We base everything on facts and evidence, really.
We don't claim it was a false flag. It's all over the internet. So it's the Russians did it, or it's a false flag, or it's the Mossad.
Yeah, there's so many extremes.
Beautiful and very, very intriguing, and we read all of it. But we really try to stay to the facts, and then the very sober conclusion is. They tell me, Max, you spent 4,000 hours on this case. You still don't know what happened. What kind of idiot are you?
So you hope
I have to deal with that.
You hope to sort of find out more as the case goes on, and to find out who's responsible, and then obviously we draw conclusions from that.
Well, after 5 years, there's only 4 suspects who are involved in the transport and in organizing, but the people, the crew and the people who pushed the button and all that, it's still unknown. We're still waiting for that. And we have to see how strong the evidence is that the prosecutors are going to present against these 4 men, and what the defense is going to bring against them, and eventually how the judge is going to make his conclusion. And then we have to see if Australia and the Netherlands, who hold Russia responsible, if they, as countries, are going to start a case against the Russian Federation. That remains to be seen. So for the whole world, of course, is Russia now as a suspect in the trial, but officially that's not the case. Mm-hmm. So this is only the beginning. We're now almost down 5 years, 6 years down the line, and we're just beginning.
And also from the evidence that we've been able to collect so far, it seems a bit more complicated than they're trying to present. And hopefully, with your support, by July this year, we're going to make another documentary, and we'll come up with our version of events. We're very close to providing you for the first time with our version of events.
Yeah.
I think we just have time for one, maximum 2 more questions. Do we have one in the back?
So Akash mentioned that the YouTube account was verified. I have a YouTube verified account. It doesn't really mean anything. Is there any suggestion that this is an official Ukrainian verified account for YouTube? And
There's nobody who says it's not the official account.
okay, but that doesn't mean it is the official account.
It is the official account.
Oh, okay. And two, if that is the official account and these are falsified,
taps,
wiretaps,
audios, then what is the implication of that? Is that implicating the entire Russian government, factions of the Russian government, or rebel separatists within the Russian Federation? Or it's not Federation.
He's got that backwards, actually. Yeah, it would be implicating the Ukrainian government, actually, because that would have been, right, SBU.
Not government, but SBU, Secret Service,
Right.
they tempered.
Not Russia. If that was, if indeed it's tampered with, as the evidence appears to suggest.
Well, it seems to me quite obvious that the defense team is going to invite Mr. Akash to give his presentation to the court. And then if the phone taps turn out to be doctored and tampered, some are real, some are doctored or tampered, then it remains to be seen how the judge will respond. But in our documentary, we had aviation lawyer Professor Gimula explain that once a thief, you're always a thief, and if it cannot be trusted what you're bringing in, then why should we trust you with the next stuff? So this is pretty straightforward, I think, but you never know how the judge is going to rule.
I think with the question that he was asking also speaks to the motivation. If there was doctored wiretaps, that means that there's a motive there. That, you know, why would you doctor them in the first place?
That's the question.
What is the
Very
intent?
interesting question,
That's the
Patrick.
question.
And that's what the court would be looking at if they were looking at that piece of evidence. One last question. I think this lady here. Yeah.
Hi, Anna Alexeyeva, Izvestia, Russia, and I would like to ask, will your findings be actually accepted in court, including the audio analysis report? And what is the reaction to your findings here in the UK and in the Ukraine? Thank you.
Do we know about the reaction in the UK? We know that Dutch mass media ignoring our findings.
Yeah. So Bonanza Media is the first journalistic group that is leaking documents. So I get the feeling everybody is a little bit jealous, and they're just ignoring us. It's just like our documentary is watched almost 300,000 times on YouTube, Call for Justice, but it hasn't been unreported in the Netherlands and in the UK. Like official media just ignore us. And then in Russia we get a lot of attention, as you know, but then it's, but that's because they work for Putin and you get all this. I mean, we're also tired of this to defend ourselves. It's, but why they ignore it, I think it's jealousy, and it is inconvenient that we challenge the official narrative. You're not supposed to do it.
The BBC,
not in the West.
Didn't the BBC just attack you this past week, right?
Yeah.
BBC.
Oh yeah, they
not
did.
The first time.
But also, again, labeling, nothing up to the point. No.
So just ad hominem saying that you're pro-Kremlin.
Of course.
Or you're backing a pro-Kremlin narrative.
Well, we get back in the future to that article, but the article was so sloppy that they said, there were 11 Buk positions presented, 7 Ukrainian and 3 Russian. So for the BBC, 7 plus 3 is 11, so maybe that's enough said about BBC today.
So I've just been, Yelena says she just has 2 more questions, one in there in the middle, one in the front.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Hello. Very quickly, do I understand that the entirety of the evidence that's been presented so far by the JIT is from social media and radio intercepts? I mean, do we have things like air traffic control evidence and logbooks from military units or that sort of thing? Is it just purely those 2 things?
Military. We leaked the documents about military. Well, that's what we would really want to know ourselves about air traffic controllers. We were able to receive a document of Dutch military.
We published in a previous newsletter that the Dutch military intelligence did not have any reliable data from any reliable source. There was a bug tailor close by enough to shoot down the Boeing, which in theory doesn't mean that there wasn't such a book, But if they are so incompetent that guys from social media like couch potatoes behind a laptop, they can find the evidence, and the military intelligence of the Dutch, with all the NATO support, the US support, could not verify this and confirm this, it's going to be very interesting to see how the court also responds to this.
Yeah, and this military, Dutch military intelligence letter was sent 1 week before GIT had its press conference. And at this press conference, they were very sure that it was Russian book. Yeah. That was the narrative. But 1 week before that, Dutch military intelligence writes a letter that it doesn't have any evidence that any books were in the position to hit MH17.
To answer your the question more precise, what the JIT has presented so far to the public, it is really very inconclusive, and all the things I checked on the spot, it doesn't add up. So it doesn't mean they don't have proper evidence, but we'll have to see in the court. But so far, what we have seen is very underwhelming when it comes to the overwhelming evidence that was claimed for all these years. They have to come up with something really better than what they've shown so far. Last question?
Okay.
Hello, Max, Jana. Thank you very much. I'm one of those people that takes the sort of evidence that you put together and try and fit it into a pattern. And my question to you, and I guess the question for all of us, is what do you expect from the trial? And given that all these events, and I could reel off a whole list, but I'm not going to take up anyone's time, all these events are linked. They're all systemic. How do we actually move beyond what you're doing, which is the individual cases, which are clearly, to any sane, rational person, not being presented as reality? The reality is not being presented. Perceptions are being manipulated. How do we move beyond that? But more specifically to you, what do you expect from the trial? Because my expectation is actually pretty low in terms of what the outcome will be, because we've seen so many instances where diligent people have really put in a huge amount of work, which really shows us what's going on, and we are eternally grateful for that. But the problem is that the juggernaut seems to roll out without so much of a bump in the road.
Yeah. Well, we're going to proceed doing our job step by step. As for the court and our expectations, we have very few expectations. And I trust Max's judgment on the court because he's Dutch. He knows his countrymen better. He said it's going to be a kangaroo trial, right?
Well, kangaroo trial, they have to convince me by showing all the evidence, and not just, it really comes to this. There's evidence from the Secret Service of Ukraine, which is a very doubtful organization, torturing people, etc. Tampering evidence, showing pseudocide people, like Babchenko case, the guy is dead, the next day he's not dead, they set it all up. So this kind of, and then you have anonymous witnesses, that's going to be a very important part. How can we verify the anonymous witnesses? Then there is classified data from the United States military. What are they going to show us that is really convincing and that we, everybody, open source intelligence, can verify? Also, so I have my strong doubts that they're going to show it, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I just wanted to note that all our witnesses are not anonymous. We have real witnesses, and you can all go and check them if you want. Just saying.
And Yelena?
Thank you so much, everyone. This has been a great event. I work in IT, so I found Akash's presentation especially brilliant, and it was so interesting to hear his methodology and everything.
Yeah. Thank you.
And so,
I agree.
First question to Akash was, it'd be great if that report will eventually be made available online. And the other thing we heard from Akash is that there's standards. There's an ISO standard for the presentation of forensic evidence and the handling of it. And we heard that the evidence that's supplied from the Ukrainian secret services, this would fail on several counts and essentially would be thrown out of court. Right, so I don't know about air crash investigations, but they have processes, protocols, and procedures as well. You must have looked at a lot of them. How similar or how different was this investigation into other ones? Because it seems like things like sometimes satellite data is available, other times it isn't. And again, it's difficult for you to say, but how seriously are the people and diligently are the people working towards finding out the truth on this investigation?
Right. As I mentioned, thanks for the question. As I mentioned, actually, any kind of source of any digital evidence to be presented, there must be some kind of source that you need to validate. You need to mention where it was coming from. I understand many agencies like military or some kind of secret services, they will be having some kind of intelligence to gather those information. As long it's given to the authority and as long it's presented and it can be shown to the judge, right? It can be shown to the judge and judge is able to understand that and shows that its validity and authenticity, it can be accepted by the court of law. It is fine. So there are many evidence, radar, there will be evidence that you can take from other storage or other media. And if you present that accordingly to the process, ISO 27K is one of the process, and there must be a process to show that this is accepted and this is something that is not tampered. As long as it shows that, that should be accepted.
Yeah.
We're going to wrap up the question and answer session and also the panel, but before we do that, I just want to thank Akash Rosen, also from traveling for such a long distance to be here to make his presentation.
Thank you so much,
and also to Yelena and Max. Yes, Max and Yelena. And also Bonanza Media. It's a excellent project. I'm glad that you've undertaken this. I know it's a lot of work, and it's not financially as rewarding as other commercial ventures, but it's very important work, and we want to thank you very much for your dedication on this investigation.
Thank you.
I want to thank Patrick from 21st Century Wire for gluing everything together. Thanks a lot.
Yes, thank you, Patrick. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you.